You know what's wild? You can follow all the basic financial advice save money, cut back on coffee, track your spending, and still feel like you're running in place. You're doing what you're supposed to do, but when you think about investing that money, it's like staring at a menu in a language you don't speak. Index funds, dividend stocks, ETFs, bonds, growth versus value. The more you research, the more confusing it gets. So you leave it in savings, earning basically nothing because that feels safe. That confusion isn't random, it's designed to keep you from building wealth. Today, I'm going to show you how to cut through it and make decisions that grow your money, not in some complicated way, but in a way that makes sense. Why does investing feel overwhelming when saving doesn't? When you save, there's one rule: spend less than you make. Done. But when you invest, suddenly there are 1,000 choices, each with warnings about risk. Here's what most people do: they read about index funds, then dividend stocks, then real estate, then crypto, and suddenly they're paralyzed, comparing strategies they don't understand, trying to find the perfect investment, and nothing happens. Months go by, their money just sits there. This isn't your fault. Financial industry benefits from confusion. The more overwhelmed you feel, the more likely you pay someone or do nothing. Both work in their favor. But here's what they don't want you to know. Clarity doesn't come from learning everything. It comes from understanding three core principles and ignoring the rest. Let me tell you what changed everything. I stopped finding the best investment and started asking, what do I need my money to do? There is no single best investment. There's only the right one for your timeline and goal. Someone building wealth over 30 years needs a different strategy than someone generating income in 5 years. But nobody talks about that. They just tell you to invest in the stock market like that means something. If you have time, real time, like 10 years or more, your job is simple: buy assets that grow in value. For most people, that means index funds, not because they're exciting, but because they grow with the economy. You're not trying to beat the market, you're trying to match it. Over decades, the market averages around 10% annually. Real numbers. If you invest $500 monthly in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund starting at 25, by 65, you'd have over $1.2 million. You put in $240,000 over 40 years, and it grew into over a million from compound growth. That's not get rich quick. That's math and time. But here's where people get stuck. They think 500 a month isn't enough, or they need to understand every detail before starting. So they research for another year, and their timeline keeps shrinking. That's the trap. Clarity comes from understanding enough to act. If you're 35 or 45 thinking, I don't have 40 years, that's fine. Your strategy shifts. You still want growth, but also income. This is where dividend stocks or ETFs come in. Instead of waiting for price increases, you're collecting quarterly payments. Those can be reinvested to compound growth faster, or as you near retirement, they become income. Most people avoid dividends because returns look smaller, maybe 3 to 5%, but they're missing the point. Dividends give cash flow. That reduces paycheck dependency. That turns your portfolio from a number into something supporting your life. Here's the shift most miss. Wealth isn't built by finding the perfect investment. It's built by consistently putting money into assets that grow or generate income, then not touching it. That's the game. But we've been conditioned to think investing is about picking winners, timing markets. It's not. It's about consistency and patience. What kills portfolios? Emotional decisions. You invest during a good year, the market dips, you panic and pull out, then miss recovery. Or you chase Bitcoin or buy a hot stock at peak. All from confusion. You're reacting instead of following a plan. When you understand what you're accomplishing, growth or income or both, distractions stop mattering. You don't need to understand the stock market to invest. You just need index funds. An index fund is hundreds of companies bundled together. When you buy one share of S&P 500, you own a piece of 500 of America's biggest companies. That's diversification. That's stability. Confusion exists because financial industry makes money from complexity. They want you to think you need managed funds, advisors, or complicated strategies. But studies show low-cost index funds outperform most managed funds. Why? You're not paying high fees, and you're not relying on someone to beat the market, which almost nobody does. Here's the clarity. If you're building long-term wealth, Invest in low-cost index funds and let compound growth work. If you want income, add dividend investments. Somewhere in between, do both. That's it. Everything else is noise. Now, here's the hard part, and it's not about money. It's about accepting that investing is boring. It doesn't feel like progress because nothing dramatic happens. You set up automatic contributions, you watch your account grow slowly. Some months it dips, some months it jumps, but over years it builds. And that psychological shift from wanting instant results to trusting the process is what separates people who build wealth from people who stay stuck. The barrier isn't knowledge, it's the fear of doing it wrong. It's the worry that you'll pick the wrong fund, or invest at the wrong time, or miss out on better opportunities. But let me tell you something, starting imperfectly is infinitely better than waiting for perfect clarity that never comes. You don't need to optimize every decision. You just need to start putting money into assets that grow. And when you do that consistently, something shifts. You stop living paycheck to paycheck because your portfolio starts generating its own growth. You stop feeling trapped by your job because you're building an asset base that could eventually replace your income. You stop feeling anxious about the future because you're actively creating financial security instead of just hoping it works out. This is what financial independence actually looks like. It's not retiring at 30, it's building a portfolio that gives you options. Maybe that's retiring early. Maybe that's working less. Maybe that's just knowing you could walk away if you needed to. But that freedom only comes from taking action, not from endlessly researching. So, what do you actually do? Here are your next steps. First, open a brokerage account if you don't have one. Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab, pick one. They're all fine. Don't overthink it. The goal is to get started, not to find the perfect platform. Second, set up automatic monthly contributions. Start with whatever you can afford, even if it's $100 a month. The amount matters less than the consistency. Automate it so you don't have to think about it. This removes the emotional decision making. Third, invest in a broad market index fund. If you don't know which one, start with a total stock market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund. Look for low expense ratios. The best funds charge under 0.05%, meaning less than $5 per year for every $10,000 invested. That's it. You're done. You're now investing. If you're worried about doing it wrong, remember this. The biggest mistake isn't picking the wrong fund, it's not starting at all. You can always adjust later. You can add dividend funds as you learn more, but you can't get back the time you spend waiting for perfect clarity. And if the amounts feel too small, run the numbers. $100 a month invested at 8% annual returns becomes almost $150,000 in 30 years. That's real wealth built from what feels like nothing right now. Look, investing isn't supposed to feel exciting. It's supposed to feel like you're finally taking control. The confusion you've been feeling, that goes away the moment you stop trying to learn everything and start doing something. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to understand enough to take action. Wealth is built slowly by people who show up consistently, even when it feels like nothing's happening. That's the game, and now you know exactly how to play it. So stop waiting for clarity to arrive. Create it by starting today. If this helped, let me know in the comments. And if you want more real investment education without the hype, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.